One of the questions I'm asked most often is which oil or fat should you use to cook with? It's a really good question because there are so many different oils and fats out there, and it's really hard to know what you need to consider. So the first things to think about is what you're using that oil for. So is it for cooking, or is it for a marinade or a salad dressing? And that does make a difference. The reason it makes a difference is that most fats will have a certain level that you can cook with, and it's called the smoke point. So if something has a high smoke point, it means you can cook with it at high temperatures. So why is that actually important? The reason for that is that if you are using an oil that doesn't have a high smoke point and you do cook with it at high temperatures, then it's going to change chemical makeup, and then it's potentially dangerous within your body. But if you use an oil that does have a high smoke point at high temperatures, it's going to remain stable. If it remains stable, it's going to not potentially cause that damage. So that's really important to think about. So for me, there are certain oils or fats that I would use for cooking, and only those for cooking. The first one is actually butter. So good old-fashioned butter. It's a saturated fat, which means that it will remain stable at high temperatures. So although you can let it smoke, and that will actually change the flavour of the butter and it might affect your dish, but you know that it isn't going to be dangerous because it is a stable fat at high temperatures. It's a saturated fat. Along the same lines as butter is ghee. Now, ghee has actually been gaining popularity recently, and quite rightly so, because it was once vilified because it was a saturated fat. But now that we've seen the evidence and the research, and we know that actually a saturated fat is actually better and more stable at high temperatures, ghee actually is a great choice. So the difference between ghee and butter is that this is a clarified butter, and the milk solids have been separated from the milk liquids. So it's a great choice if you're lactose intolerant, because actually it's just the solids and you don't have the lactose part, which could be causing the problems if you do have problems with lactose. So it is pretty much the same as fat. It's a saturated fat, so you can use it at high temperatures. So a good one to use. Now, coconut oil is the other one, again, gaining in popularity. And it is a saturated fat. So again, a good one that remains stable at high temperatures. Obviously with coconut oil, it will have a flavour. So you just have to determine what you're cooking and whether that lends itself to that coconut flavour. So perhaps stir fries or curries work really well when you're using coconut. So that's a great one. If you're looking for something that does remain stable, but you don't want a flavour, then I often use rapeseed oil. So it's a very easy oil to use. You can use it at high temperatures and it doesn't really have a flavour. So a good one just as a base one to use. Now, olive oil. Olive oil is one that's very popular for cooking. And I do use it for cooking, but when I use it, I try to make sure that I don't use it at very high temperatures. So keeping those phrases, a moderate heat or a gentle saute or a moderate oven, is where you can use olive oil. So it does have a lovely flavour, but it is not as stable as coconut oil, ghee or butter. So it can potentially change chemical makeup at the higher temperatures. So I would actually reserve that for when you're cooking at a gentle temperature, or even better for a salad dressing or a marinade. I would also not use a very expensive olive oil for cooking, because actually you're going to denature it. And it just seems a shame to use something that's expensive where you're not going to be getting the health benefits of having it perhaps cold pressed or more expensive as a brand. So the other two that are also worth considering are an avocado oil. And you can see that's a nice rich colour. So an avocado oil, although expensive, is actually stable at high temperatures. So because it's expensive, I don't tend to use it for frying, but it is stable and you can use it. The other types of oils are the nut oils. Now, they are not really stable at high temperature, and I wouldn't use them for any cooking whatsoever. This one is a walnut oil, and it's ideal for a salad dressing, so where you get the flavour and therefore the benefits as well. So really, you've got 4 choices that are your mainstay fats to use. You've got butter and ghee and coconut oil and rapeseed oil. And then you've also got olive oil if you're cooking at slightly more moderate temperatures. So I hope that helps.